The first time I rode across the Red Mesa Flats, the wind cut my face like a blade and freedom thundered beneath me in the form of a coal-black stallion named Judgment. I had ridden horses my entire life, gentle mares, plow horses, tired rentals, but nothing like this. This animal didn't move, he answered. Every shift of my weight, every breath I took, he understood, as if we were bound by something older than words. That was when I heard the rancher's voice behind me, calm and steady, saying, "Easy. He'll test you before he trusts you." I turned, heart hammering, and saw him standing by the fence, tall, sunburned, eyes like a man who'd buried more than dreams in this land. Everyone called him Cole Hartman, the man who never smiled, the man who owned half the valley and none of its patience. Yet when he looked at me, there was no judgment, only curiosity, like he was watching a storm decide where to strike. I had come west to escape a life already written for me back east. Polite dinners, polite men, polite suffocation. My uncle's letter promised work on a ranch and nothing more. But from the moment Cole watched me ride, I knew nothing here would be small. The town warned me about him, said he was hard, said he broke horses and men the same way, said no woman stayed long under his roof. Still, every morning he trained me himself, pushing me beyond fear, beyond comfort. "You don't ride a horse," he told me once, voice low as dusk. "You ride your doubt." And every day, I rode farther, faster, stronger than I ever had before. The land itself seemed to test me, dust storms that erased the sky. Nights so cold they felt personal. Days so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. Through it all, Cole never softened, but he never abandoned me either. When I fell, he waited until I stood on my own. When I succeeded, he nodded once, like that meant more than applause ever could. The town watched us, whispering. A woman alone on a ranch? A man who didn't bend. Trouble, they said, was inevitable. One evening, as the sun bled red over the hills, Judgment reared unexpectedly. Fear flashed, but I didn't fall. I stayed. When the horse settled, the silence stretched. Cole stepped closer than he ever had before. "You've changed," he said. I realized then that I had. I wasn't running anymore. I was becoming, and that terrified me more than any horse ever could. Before he walked away, he added, "Just know this, once you ride this land, it doesn't let you go." That night, I understood the truth. I had never ridden like this before because I had never lived like this. Before, the proposal didn't come with flowers or softness. It came with a storm, the kind that splits the sky and makes even the strongest fences look foolish. We were trapped in the north shelter, rain hammering the roof, lightning turning the world white in broken flashes. Cole stood across from me, hat in his hands, jaw tight like a man standing before a firing line. "I don't ask for things," he said, "but I'm asking now." He spoke of the land, of threats from outside men who wanted to claim it, of a future that needed strength beside it, not behind it. Then he looked at me, not as a worker, not as a guest, but as an equal. "I want you as my wife, not to own you, to stand with you." The words hit harder than thunder. Marriage was what I'd fled, a cage with prettier bars. Yet this felt different. Not a demand, but an invitation. Still, fear clawed at me. "What if I say no?" I asked. He didn't hesitate. "Then you ride on, and I'll never stop respecting you." In that moment, I saw the truth of him, not the legend, not the rumors, but a man who understood freedom because he'd paid for it in loneliness. The town exploded with opinion. Some said I was foolish. Others said I'd won something powerful. But the choice wasn't about them. It was about whether I believed in the woman I had become on that saddle, under that sky. The land had shaped me. Cole had challenged me. But the decision had to be mine. At dawn, I rode Judgment one last time alone. The wind rose, the world opened, and I realized the answer wasn't about marriage. It was about partnership, about choosing a life that demanded courage every day. When I returned, Cole was waiting, silent. I dismounted, met his eyes, and said, "I won't be owned. I won't be small. But if you're asking me to ride with you, then yes." He didn't smile. He exhaled, like a man who'd been holding his breath for years. Our wedding was simple. No lace, no pretending. Just vows spoken under open sky, witnessed by land that had tested us both. I didn't stop riding after I became his wife. If anything, I rode farther, stronger, free. Because the truth is this: I'd never ridden like that before, until the rancher didn't try to stop me and asked me to ride beside him for life. Marriage did not quiet the land. If anything, it seemed to test us harder once we stood side by side. The morning after our vows, the valley woke under a tense stillness. The kind that comes before trouble shows its teeth. Cole said nothing at breakfast, only studied the horizon like it might blink first. I had learned by then that silence was how he prepared for storms, human or otherwise. By noon, word reached us that riders had been spotted near the eastern ridge. Men with no brand, no business, and too many guns for honest intentions. The land we stood on had always been contested, and now it was personal. I saddled judgment without being asked. Cole watched me, a question in his eyes, not doubt but concern. "You don't have to," he said. I tightened the strap and met his gaze. "You didn't marry a shadow," I replied. That was the moment I felt the shift. When being his wife stopped meaning shelter and started meaning responsibility. We rode out together, dust trailing behind us like a warning. The confrontation was brief but heavy. Words were exchanged like loaded weapons. The men wanted water rights, grazing access, leverage. Cole refused calmly, firmly, the way a mountain refuses the wind. One of them laughed and looked at me like I was decoration. I dismounted, stepped forward, and told him exactly who I was and what I rode for. The laughter stopped. Respect doesn't always come from strength alone, it comes from certainty. That night, as we returned home under a bruised sky, I felt the weight of the choice I had made. This life wasn't romance painted in gold light. It was vigilance. It was standing your ground even when fear whispered retreat. Cole finally spoke as we reached the gate. "This land takes payment," he said. "Every day," I nodded. "So does freedom." The weeks that followed were harder than any before. Drought threatened the herds. The town tested me, waiting for weakness, for regret. But I rose before dawn, worked until my hands blistered, rode patrols when the moon was thin and sharp. Slowly the whispers changed. Not because I was his wife, but because I was capable. One evening, after a long ride, Cole handed me his hat without a word. It was worn, shaped by years of sun and struggle. A quiet gesture, trust, partnership. I placed it on my head and laughed for the first time in days. "Looks better on you," he said, and this time he smiled. Standing there, dust on my boots, wind in my hair, I understood the final truth of riding like this. It wasn't about speed or skill or escape anymore. It was about choosing to stay when leaving would be easier. About riding into uncertainty together, not because it was safe, but because it was honest. I had never ridden like this before. Not into danger, not into responsibility, not into a future that demanded everything I was. And I wouldn't trade it for any road back east, any promise of comfort, or any life that didn't let me ride fully, fiercely, and free.